first one I want you to look at and think about is rebates. Now, all of you do permanence, which is great. All of you will have a rebate system in place, I'm sure, and it is in your terms of business, as required by the law, to tell clients how much you're going to charge and what the rebate arrangement is, amongst other things, in your T&Cs, yes? Okay. I want you for a moment, please, to put your client hat on and look at this for a moment from the client point of view. I want you to be the cynical old sort who's been all around the block, knows what this is all about, and use the point of view, I use the expression POV. I want you to think of it from the client's point of view. Put your client hat on and ask your potential agency what is their arrangement as regards rebates. Now, in November 1993, we reckoned we would capture at least 85% of the terms of business for permanence by saying that the rebate system in place was that there was a guarantee period of between 8 and 12 weeks, during which time, if the candidate fell out of bed for any reason other than redundancy, there would be some form of rebate or refund, either in a straight line or stepped scale. For 20 years or so back, and still true, other than redundancy, period of 8 to 12 weeks, reducing refund, straight line or steps. And do you conform to that? Answer, pretty well, yes. Now, keep your client hat on. If instead of all your terms of business being presented to you as the client, you had a consultancy approach. Now, this is one of the things I also believe quite fervently in, is that don't use the wrong term. Consultancy is overused, I accept, but don't ever say you're an agency, because an agency has all the connotations of all the bad stuff about the industry. A consultancy doesn't necessarily. It's a whole separate ball game that I play with. But anyway, for the moment, I want you to regard yourselves as a consultancy and not as an agency. And so, Mr. Client, I'm now talking to you as potential clients. You've got the client hat on. As our consultancy, we do not have a rebate system for permanence. We have an unconditional financial guarantee. Terminology again. Now, for the moment, that could be just the same as you're offering at the moment. Could be, but it isn't. But it's a much stronger term than the word that everyone else uses, isn't it? So I probably get at least a little bit of, what's that mean then? Because we offer an unconditional financial guarantee for other than redundancy, so we're obviously not covering that, that's a fair comment, because it's nothing to do with the recruitment process, for a period of 100 days. That is 14.3 weeks, always translated into weeks, because if they are aware of what's going on, then they will always have weeks in mind. It's 8 or 12. So what's 100 days? The answer is it's 14.3 weeks. So 14.3 weeks is longer than the normal probationary period, so it's stronger already. And we will give you a full 100% refund, no quibble, of the fee. So instead of rebates, you give an unconditional financial guarantee and get that into the terminological way of your clients and candidates understanding a differentiator about you is your UFG, to use the acronym. Still keep your client hat on. So what does that say about us against the rest of the market? First one, we must be confident, unless we're going to commit commercial suicide. Why would we do it? We stand by our client and our service. We're in this with you for 14.3 weeks. And if it doesn't work, you get your money back. We're not in the rip-off business. The rip-off business, frankly, and I honestly believe this, from the client's perspective is, it falls out of bed after 6 weeks, for whatever reason, and they've paid or are required to pay most of the fee. And they've got to start all over again. If that's not a rip-off, okay, but that's the norm, that's the industry, fine. Don't know why we've got a bad reputation, really. We are different. Client can see that we're different and can see that there is a greatly reduced risk in using our service versus the competition in financial terms, plus the things that might go round that, because if we're that confident, we aren't going to just push people into jobs. We're not going to oversell people, are we, if it's all going to fall about? Now, so far so good, client's hat still firmly on. you're impressed, aren't you, with my service versus the ones that you're normally offering. Fair? Yeah? And I say to you, now, in order, Mr. Client, to take advantage of our unconditional financial guarantee, you will have to pay within 14 days. Now, back off for a second. You can take your client hat off for a second. Your current terms of business undoubtedly will have a period of time in which they're supposed to pay the bill. Anyone not? Right. And also, you will almost inevitably have made that a condition of the rebate, haven't you? As the industry did 20 years ago, still does now. And if it falls out of bed at 6 weeks and the client hasn't paid, do you roll over and say, all right, then we'll give you a free replacement, we'll do something? In other words, you haven't imposed your 14 days or 28 days or whatever it is. We roll over as an industry because we don't want to lose the client. We don't want to upset the client. Oh, God's sake, don't upset the client. We'll do something to try and negotiate ourselves out of a situation. True? Okay? Because I have said to you, Mr. Client, put your hats back on again. Mr. Client, this is an unconditional financial guarantee. Anybody? No conditions. Well, hold on. Is it unconditional? Oh, yes, it is. Often people initially think, well, it's not unconditional. And my answer is, yes, it is. It is unconditional. In order to get it, in order to have this unconditional financial guarantee, you have to pay within 14 days. Once you've paid within 14 days, it's then unconditional. It's like buying the 3 years extra service cover after 1 year. If you pay that, you get it. That's fine. If you don't pay it, you don't get it. Simple enough. Now, still keep a client POV on, because there's a bit to go yet. So yes, it is unconditional. Agreed? You can see how you can argue that. I mean, I accept it might be questioned, but it can, I believe, logically and reasonably, not rip off, answered, not a con. So would this make us a more attractive service? Suppose the permanent falls out of bed, and in the agency, TOB, deliberately, will still cost a great deal anyway. You possibly will offer a free replacement, but that, frankly, from the client's perspective, a free replacement limits the choice, if they're not going to pay more money, to taking your candidates. And of course, we know that. That's why we do it. But actually, from the client's perspective, we would not actually like that too much, would we? We're quite happy to have it for free, but we'd rather have a free choice as to who we get the best candidate. With our unconditional financial guarantee, however, nil cost and unlimited choice to replace, because we've given you your money back and you've got another 100 days if you choose to take someone from us as a replacement. Are you feeling, as a client, still keep it, are you feeling more comfortable dealing with me than my competitors? Am I not in this with you? Is this not something where I'm backing our judgment together and I'm not just taking the money out? So if it all falls out of bed, I can assure you one thing that's going to happen is that the client is going to be happier, and we are therefore so much more attractive. We haven't got to fight to retain the business. We simply say, would you like us to try and find another person for you? The answer has to be yes. Of course we want you to find another person for us. And you haven't ripped us off in the process. Now, that's from the client's perspective, and I believe is a very compelling case why they should want to at least consider you, right? Now, look at it from the consultant's point of view, and yours. Are any of you thinking, we're going to lose too much money? We can't stand this. This is cruel. But how many of you actually have analysed how many rebates you've paid back in the last 12 months? And if you haven't, bloody well do it. You need to know. You need to know. If you haven't done it, please put that down as an action point. Just analyse the last 12 months and find out how many rebates you've given. Now, you're going to give more rebates under this system, of course, because I'm giving a longer period of time. And I said rebates, and you're going to give more money because this is 100% and you've been ripping them off with 60%. Okay? But why does it then still work? Because you've got so much more business as a result of it that what you lose on that swing, you gain on 37 more roundabouts. And it's so much better, frankly, because your consultants may say, oh, I'm going to lose my commission. And yes, you will, because if there's a 100% UFG payment, of course you're going to reduce their month's billings that month, aren't you? As I'm sure you do at the moment with any rebate that takes place, don't you? Shouldn't you? Quite right, okay. Yes, they'll lose commission with putting this in, but they won't lose commission because they're having a hell of a lot more commission coming in because of the more business they have. And I can assure you, if you put it in properly, and it's a question of knowing how to swing the club, if you put it in properly, your consultants feel much more comfortable about this, much less of a sales pushy environment to get the bloody results in, otherwise I'm dead and I get sacked. Because they've got an offering, a service, and a differentiated service they feel comfortable with and is easier to sell.
Is this with every client? You're saying to do this completely?
I say it's in your terms of business. Now, you have the opportunity to negotiate, of course, as you do at the moment. And if you have a client that you don't want to lose, who wants a different deal, well, think about it. But on the terms of business, which is why this is tangible, it's there, it's in black and white. This is what we do. Now, of course you can do that. If someone says, oh, I don't feel very comfortable with your fees, whatever they are, and they're going to be more the time I've finished with you, okay, I don't feel very comfortable with your fees. Well, if you, what would you like? Well, I don't know, we're used to paying 17.5 instead of 20 or whatever it is. Well, if we were to do business with you, if I want to, at 17.5, then we clearly can't give you a 100-day guarantee. We'll have to pull that back. We'll have to adjust that. Hey, but you're in the driving seat now because you've got something they want. At the moment, you haven't got anything to argue with because so is everyone else. And they won't lose their commission. They'll get more because there'll be more business coming through. So I ask you, how many of your placements are currently rebated? Check it out, find out. And you'll find there's a very small proportion on the whole. More typically in certain markets, and yes, sales could be one of them, I accept that. How many of your placements are discounted on your normal terms of business? I don't expect you to give me the instant answer, but do you know, have you got the facility to find out? Have you ever measured it? Because if you haven't, please make that an action point straight away. There is a handout which you're not going to get because it's a whole separate ballgame, but basically analyze the last 6 months' placements under the headings of the date, the consultant, invoice number, client, candidate, placement salary, by which I mean the amount on which the percentage fee was calculated, the fee, and what percentage that was as a percentage of the salary. Do that, add it all up for 6, 12 months, however long it's going to take you to get and comfortably do it, and then find out what your average fee is, what your average placement salary is. If you don't measure your average placement salary, you can't work out what your average placement fee is as a percentage. And that's what I need to know. And then what you do is you add 3 more columns. And you then say, what is the percentage on our terms of business for that salary? How much is the fee on that basis? And what is the discount, if any, that we've therefore given? And add that lot up. You will be gobsmacked how much discounting there is taking place. Now, that's a whole separate ballgame. That's why I'm not going to hand this out, because it's a separate thing altogether. But it is, just to do it, going to be pretty enlightening, I can assure you. So having found out that you've got a lot of discounting taking place, which would be unusual if you hadn't, what weapons do you have to resist that price pressure? And I suggest very little at the moment. Differentiation in place, you've got a hell of a lot more at your disposal. So sticking still with you and your consultant's point of view, what proportion of rebate claims are made without having adhered to your terms of business resettlement? Answer again, typically in the industry, a pretty large percentage, because you can put that on as another column. Did they pay to terms? And again, you'll find that quite often the people who are grabbing the biggest discount from you are the ones who take longest to pay as well. Is this your choice? Is this what you have agreed to? Or is this what you feel you're being forced to do? And the answer is, if you're being forced to do it, it's mainly because you haven't got anything else to offer them that everyone else hasn't got. Because the client will obviously want the unconditional financial guarantee. I think you can see that. He can have it, but he must pay within 14 days, and the 7 steps to follow to ensure that he does pay within 14 days. Now, you might think, well, what we want is actually to get the business, not pay within 14 days, and we don't have to give them their money back. Wrong. Big time wrong. Your objective should be to ensure that they pay within 14 days, not only for the obvious cash flow benefit that will derive from that, but because it will mean that the guarantee is in place. And the guarantee is in place means that you're protected from any that's going to hit the fan further down the road that your competitors would simply have to swallow. Sorry about the analogy. Okay. Right. So there are 7 steps to follow to ensure that the client does do that, and I'm coming to those in a second. But 7 steps ensure that typically the client will pay within 14 days. And if, to take your point, they're not paid, then there is no refund and there is no free replacement, there is nothing. Dead in the water, deal done. And you have made this abundantly clear from the word go, as you'll see in a moment, at every step of the stage of the process. So there's no question of them turning around, oh, I don't like that. Well, you should have said so a lot earlier than this then. So you need to make sure they pay, and these are the 7 settlement enforcement process points, I call them really. You have got this in your terms of business. It is clearly stated. Unconditional financial guarantee dependent on settlement within, what you can change to 21 days if you like, but I suggest 14 is fine, to within 14 days. So you've said it in your terms of business. Have they had the terms of business? Of course they have. Must have. In the initial conversation with the client, either at the initial visit, when you're selling this idea, as amongst other things, into the client, or in the initial conversation with the client where you're given a vacancy, then the deal of the unconditional financial guarantee, which of course you'd be dead in the water if you haven't mentioned it, needs to be there and it needs to be reinforced, but that in order to take advantage of, it's the wording, in order to take advantage of that unconditional financial guarantee, you need to pay within 14 days. Would that be a problem, Mr. Client? Answer often, oh yeah, not half, because we have a 28-day payment cycle in our purchase ledger department, and that means there's plenty of things that don't get paid within 14 days. Would you ever expect to hear that? Absolutely. Quite apart from the fact we don't pay anything until we have to. Okay. You say, well, clearly you would want to have the unconditional financial guarantee in place, and what we do in those circumstances, which of course we've come across before, Mr. Client, is that with your permission, as and when we make a placement with you, once the placement is made, with your permission, we will send you an invoice. It's effectively a pro forma invoice, which you can shovel into your purchase ledger department and let it start its wheels churning. Nobody in your purchase ledger department clearly is going to pay that bill unless and until the person starts, but you have at least given yourself the chance to get it out of the department in 14 days and take advantage of the UFG. That's on the initial conversation. So would you want us to do that? And you log it. In other words, it's on the system. Spoke to John Bloggs on this date, asked him whether, said no, that'll be fine, just send us the invoice when they start and we'll get it out through the other end in 14 days. Or, yeah, that would be helpful if you could please do that. Fine. We've logged it. Next, we're now taking the job order and we say to them, we will remind you with this UFG that the 14 days is an unconditional financial guarantee purchasing method. This is how you get it. And we've put it into the job order. So the job order, we've mentioned it again when we take the job order. Now we've made the placement. Do we yet know that we have to send the invoice out or not, or have we already sent it out on the acceptance? Yes, because that's already in the system, it's already been logged in. If for the sake of argument they said, no, that's fine, we will pay you in 14 days, but send us the invoice only when it's started, then we are in a position then to confirm the placement. Do you recognize this call? Put your client hat on for a minute. Hello, Mr. Client. It's Romney Roars here. I believe that James Smith should have been starting with you this morning. I wanted to check that he'd actually arrived and everything's fine. I know it's early days yet, but you're comfortable. Do you recognize roughly that call? all your clients do as well, because our industry makes that call 99 times out of 100. If the one that doesn't is an idiot, because they're going to send a bill out now, aren't they? If he hasn't started, they've really mucked them up. Okay? So yes, we check them in, don't we? Now, keeping your client hat on for a moment, what do you think the purpose of this call is from your perspective, your client perspective? What's the purpose of this call? Yeah, can I send you an invoice? Is that really what we want them to think? So don't, please, do a start date check-in. Instead, do this. Mr. Client, hello. I am Romney Raw's boss. Best if the person above the consultant, the manager for that consultant, best if that's done. If it's the manager who's made it, well, it could be a director. I don't know. It helps, just a tiny point, it helps if it's a level up. Romney tells me that he has a starter with you this morning, James Smith. Now, you gave us this order on the date, and as part of our quality audit process, I first of all need to check with you, was there anything at all that Romney did that he shouldn't have done? Was there anything that you'd wish that he had done? Was there anything at all about the service that you've received during the time of giving us the job and now having it filled that you would like to make any comment on, positive or negative? Fine, thank you very much indeed. Now, James has indeed arrived, I take it. Yes, good. Did he arrive on time? Was he properly dressed? And are you satisfied so far with what you've seen? I know it's very early days, but are you satisfied? Yes, we are. Good. Well, as part of this quality process, we also will be calling you at 4, 8, and 12 weeks. This will be carried out by Romney to check that you are happy with the work that James Smith is doing. If, with your permission, he could also speak to James Smith and establish that he's happy with the job that he's in, then, with your permission, we'd like to do that as well as part of that quality audit process. Perception, please, of the purpose, with your client hat on, of this call. Thank you. I actually only want to know, can I send them an invoice? But I don't want them to feel the perception is that's what we do. And it's different because no one else does it this way round. And it's so bloody easy, it's pathetic. Now, if you insert into this as well, at the check-in, now, I have a note here on the system that you asked us not to send you an invoice in advance, but to send it on today's date, therefore. And I do remind you that in order to take advantage of the unconditional financial guarantee, you will need to pay that within 14 days. Just making quite sure that you're aware of that as part of the quality system. Done. That's the quality audit script, which I believe you should try and evolve and put into place. There is then the invoice sent out, and there is a handout on this, and this handout says, this is a format, if you like, for the invoice. Normal sort of stuff, to fee for the introduction of name and the position on blur, fee so-and-so, VAT thereon, total due. Then underneath, please note that in order to take advantage of our unconditional financial guarantee, this invoice needs to be settled by GAP, filled in by ink. Filled in ink. Not filled in by computer, filled in by ink or biro. Please note that in the event that this invoice is not settled in full by that date, there will be no guarantee, free replacement, refund or rebate facility, and interest may be charged per clause X of our terms of business. Now that puts it on the invoice, because part of the process often is that you as the line manager have agreed with me that this will be paid within 14 days. You want it paid within 14 days. It's gone out to the purchase ledger department, and their job is, when they get an invoice, to bury it. This needs to be so bloody clear that there's no question of it being buried by you, because if you read it, you see, and because it's different to the standard invoice, and there's something in here in big capital letters, they take notice of it. And the fact that it's filled in by hand shows that this is this particular invoice on this particular date. It makes it more real. Now, if, God forbid, that you have given a discount on this particular placement, for whatever reason, you put the invoice together with normal fee, less agreed discount, asterisk, asterisk, net fee, which is your agreed fee, VAT, total due. Please note that in order to be able to take advantage of unconditional, this must be settled by, same again. But underneath, asterisk, asterisk, please note that in the event that this invoice is not settled in full by that date, the full normal fee is payable as the discount was given conditional on settlement to terms. Thus, in this circumstance, a further invoice will be sent to recover the above discount. Also, in this circumstance of late payment, nothing blah, blah, blah. Now, it cannot be clearer, and I don't believe if you have done the previous steps in the process, and if, for instance, you've granted them a discount, and you said, well, that is absolutely conditional on settlement, and you've made it clear from the beginning, then they can't really suggest that they didn't realize this is what had to happen. So that's number 6. And number 7, which I believe is optional, but certainly we used to do it at Abacus, and that is that our sales ledger credit control department contacted the bought ledger department of the client 7 days after the placement to say, hi, I believe you handle our account, and yes, that's fine. I'm just phoning to check that you have received the invoice, that you do recognize that it needs to be paid by that date, and I'm doing this just to make quite sure that you don't miss out on it. Nice to speak to you. We get some sort of rapport between our bought ledger and their bought ledger and our sales ledger credit control. Always worth doing anyway, but we've taken the trouble to help them not fall out of bed with it. So you've then got 7 steps to make sure that by and large they will indeed have paid to terms and paid within 14 days. So still with you and your consultant's point of view, you will get more business, which is a pretty good idea. So your consultants will earn more, which I'm sure they'll be pleased about. They will also have more ammunition to fight the competition. They've got something useful to talk to the client about. You can see it's a fairly easy call to make if you've got something like this to back you up. You'll have happier clients. They'll come back for more. They'll tell others about it. You will, of course, reduce your debtor days. Now, who doesn't measure their debtor days on a monthly basis? Good. Would you like it to be better? Hands up. Right. This will make it better. You can see why. It will make it better. Your profitability will be higher because you'll be making more placements, earning more revenues, you're getting your money in quicker, and you will definitely be improving the value of your business, because, and the whole separate ballgame of the value of your business is not a little to do with what the client's perception is and their likelihood to continue to operate with you. Should you ever come to sell, any purchaser is going to want to know that that's likely to happen. This will give them some evidence as to why it will happen. Now let's think about your candidates. What about the candidates? I said these differentiators need to be beneficial to the clients, to you, yeah, and to the candidates. Now, think about this from the candidate point of view. We have an unconditional financial guarantee in place, Mr. Candidate. Why would they care? Absolutely. Now, is that a perception, a common perception in the marketplace from a candidate that you guys just push us into jobs to get your commission? Of course it is. And it's not untrue in certain types and certain companies, of course. But this immediately makes it clear to them there is no way we're going to do it. Why would we do that? What they probably don't even know, in many cases, is what the ordinary thing is. What's the norm? And we'll come to this in July, and how you sell this in. But you need to identify what the norm is to the candidate for them to realize how much stronger this is for them. So what do they know? Do they know what the normal arrangements are? So you can show yourself to be different to the candidate, and you can show that you're more committed to find them the right job, the job that's going to suit them because they're going to stay in place and we're not going to have to give our money back. So I apply my acid test to this. Is it tangible? I think that's a big yes, isn't it? Because it's in the terms of business. Is it beneficial for the clients? Absolutely. For the candidates? Absolutely. For staff, consultants? Yeah. And the business? Definitely. So it passes the acid test. So the first one of the 20, and you'll be pleased to know they don't all take quite as long as this, 100 days, 100% unconditional financial guarantee. Now, we put that in, and it was in our terms of business throughout the 5 years, unchanged, and we were really making serious inroads into the market in our various sectors that we were operating in. And I've been pumping this or banging this drum ever since, and still 85% or more of our industry don't do anything about it. That's the good news, because you've got a chance to... But, you know, I would have thought by now, there's no point in talking about this, because everyone's doing it by now. It's so bloody obvious. But it's maybe obvious, but it's not easy. It's quite difficult to get it, which is what we're covering in July, as to how to deal with it. That's the swinging of the club. Okay, so that's the first one.